Hi there, everyone. I want to get us into the right groove. So welcome. My name is Erin Elizabeth Wells, and you are in the right place if you're here for the End Every Day Feeling Productive and Awesome webinar. I am so excited to get to present this content to you. This is pretty much the first time that I have delivered this new set of content, and it's a real blessing to be able to connect with you and share these lessons and share these insights with you today. So as people start getting on the line, it's going to be, we'll start getting things rolling. I'm going to start with a little bit more official introduction in just a second. But for those of you early birds who have jumped on just a couple of minutes early, welcome. Glad to have you here. I'm Erin, and feel free to make use of the chat box. Feel free to introduce yourself, tell us where you're from, and we're looking forward to getting to play with everyone today and getting to share some of these great ideas that are going to really give you the chance to change that old pattern that you may have had in the past around getting to the end of the day and going, oh God, I didn't get it all done again. So if that's you, if that's ever been you, then you are so in the right place to start changing that right now. Start changing that immediately. So I want to welcome you all. It's now the top of the hour, and I am delighted to have you here. My name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. I'm an intentionality expert and productivity strategist. And I am delighted to be sharing this content with you today. I was inspired to create this webinar and this particular piece of content for you after I spent about 3 months talking one-on-one with a variety of entrepreneurs in particular and other professionals. And I was doing some research, and I was trying to get really clear on what were the key challenges that people were facing. I've been in this industry for a long time, and I really feel like I felt like I wanted to just dive in a little bit deeper and get a sense of where people were getting caught. And what I noticed was that in so many of the conversations I was having, there was this common refrain, there was this common chorus about feeling exhausted, feeling frustrated, and particularly getting to the end of the day and just feeling disappointed. That sense that for yet another day, I didn't get it all done. And I just felt so called to make sure that got addressed. That pattern that many of us have lived in, where day in and day out, we feel like we're overwhelmed by what's on our plates, and we make a plan, and then we don't get to the end of our plan. And I truly believe that this is a challenge that can be changed, that there's a different way of approaching it that's going to leave you feeling successful and victorious. I like to think of it that way, just awesome at the end of every day. So I'm going to be bopping back and forth a little bit between the live camera feed and between the slides. So let me switch to the slides here for a second, and we're going to get things rolling. All right, so welcome to End Every Day Feeling Productive and Awesome. Now, you are in the right place. If you are tired of getting to the end of each day with that feeling of, I didn't do enough, I wasn't productive enough, there wasn't, I just didn't hit the mark today. If you've been in that pattern of working 24/7 and you're just exhausted. Now, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I know a lot of entrepreneurs that have fallen into that habit. I find that particularly entrepreneurs, but also a lot of the professionals I've worked with, senior executives as well, have gotten into this space where we just don't know how to stop. We see the huge list in front of us, and we basically just go until we drop. So I'm going to help you today figure out how to change that pattern. And finally, you're in the right place if you are truly ready to end every day feeling empowered and amazing. So this is what we're going to play with today. This is what we're going to explore. And as I said at the beginning, my name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. And I work with high achievers to help them move from exhaustion to excellence. And I'm realizing that it's possible you guys aren't seeing the slides, so let me switch that in. Okay, so my name is Erin Elizabeth Wells. I help high achievers move from exhaustion to excellence. And I've been in the organizing industry for over 12 years. And I've worked with a wide range of people, everyone from CEOs to senior vice presidents to entrepreneurs and assistants. And my work focuses particularly on creating the systems that ensure that the right things are getting done, that we're really working smarter and not harder. So I'm the author of the upcoming book, Meaning and Method, Creating More Purpose, Productivity, and Peace in Your Life, which should be out this fall. And I want to start us off a little bit by giving you a little bit more of my personal story. So I'm going to switch back to the video for a second. And here we go. And I want to kind of tell you how I got into this, because a lot of people are really like, why are you why are you here talking about this? And how did you come to be doing this work in the world? So I started my career in professional organizing when I was a graduate student. And I was working as a graduate student assistant for a professor in the Italian department at Yale University. And he was one of these just, wonderful guys, just truly amazing men, who was also absent-minded, overcommitted, the classic professor. He had one of those offices into which many, many things had gone in and not many things had come out in the course of the 25 years he'd been in that office. And so my job for him, I was his graduate student assistant. My job for him was to help him do his filing, to help take dictation. Occasionally I was taking dictation in Italian, which I really don't speak. And so that was a challenge. But a lot of what I was also doing for him was helping him with reorganizing his office and doing a fair amount of time management consulting, what most people would refer to as time management consulting, because, as I said, overcommitted. He was often struggling figuring out kind of what his top priority was or where he needed to focus his attention from one day to the next. And so I essentially, in the course of that year that I was working for him, realized that I could be doing everything I loved about this job and leave off things like taking dictation in Italian if I started my own company. And so that was the beginning of my company. Originally, my first division, my first company is called Living Peace. It still exists. And with Living Peace, I have members of my team now that work with people in their homes and in their small offices, basically helping them to create order in their space. So Living Peace focuses on the tangible organizing aspect. How do we create the structures in one's environment that will allow you to support your life and be successful? Then about 4 years ago, I came to the realization that what I truly loved was what I now refer to as the intangible organizing. It's more about productivity. It's more about the flow of information, the flow of our time and our tasks, our decision-making, our priorities, all of these parts that are a crucial aspect of how we keep ourselves focused and stop the insanity, right? If we don't have good systems for these intangible elements, then things tend to fall apart. So that was the beginning of Chosen Course. And Chosen Course is this part of my work in which I'm helping high achievers move from exhaustion to excellence. So that's my story. That's how I come to be here talking about this with you all today. And I'm going to get us rolling with the great lessons that we're going to talk about to really help you end your days feeling productive and awesome. So let me switch back to the slides. All right. So our plan for today's chat is we're going to start by exploring what I call the 3 components of excellence. These 3 pieces that if we don't address all 3, any intervention, any change we're trying to make, any transformation we're trying to undergo, in all likelihood will be short-lived. Then we're going to go into the primary cause of overwhelm and disappointment for most people. We'll move from there into discussing the 2 key habits that you can start today, literally immediately, that will help you to change that pattern, to make sure that you are instilling a new and more effective pattern every day. Then we'll talk about how to regain that sense of accomplishment and pride each day, and we're going to close by talking about how you can take it further. So as I said at the beginning of this presentation, I was inspired to create this content and this webinar today after I spent several months talking with quite literally dozens of entrepreneurs. And what I recognize, and what probably many of us have experienced, is that sense when you get started where the visions are coming to you of how amazing running a business and living this amazing lifestyle is going to be like. There's going to be all this freedom and these opportunities, this amazing success, and just how phenomenal this experience is going to be. And we get all of this into our minds, and then we get started in the work and we discover the reality. And there was one woman I spoke to in particular, and she was talking about one of her biggest frustrations, and she used this phrase that I loved, and I asked her if I could use it afterwards. She called it the love song of the entrepreneur. And the love song of the entrepreneur is that space of too many ideas, too many projects, too many things to do. Because most entrepreneurs I know, they're passionate about what they're up to, and they really want to make it amazing, which means that they look for, oh, and then I could do this, and then I could do this, and then I could do this. And it just gets to be so overwhelming. So part of what we all need to recognize is that we weren't born with the skills that allow us to handle the volume of decisions and responsibilities that we're experiencing every day. It's not like we came out of the womb knowing how to handle this. So we need to recognize that these are skills that can be learned. These are skills that you pick up by intentionally engaging with them. So I'm showing you, this is our chosen course productivity compass. This is kind of our model of the pieces that go into really excellent productivity. And we're going to be diving into just a couple of these today, particularly into the realm of task management and a little bit of energy management. But these skills are things that we are introduced to and incorporate, and they are what allow us to handle the flow of things more effectively one day to the next. So recognizing that there are all these different areas of productivity, I'm going to dive in and explore with you more those 3 components of excellence. And in any of these 8 areas that you're seeing on the compass, these 3 components are relevant. So what I need to kind of address up front is that most of us, when we start feeling overwhelmed, we start looking for that new tool. We start looking for the new software, the new planner. I found the same thing in the organizing world. Whenever I'd talk to a new client, often I would hear this, this pattern in which, well, you know, I went out, there's just so much stuff, and I was so overwhelmed by the stuff that I went out and I bought a bunch of bins and I put it all in the bins, but now I don't know where anything is and I still feel disorganized. And essentially what those clients were realizing, and what I find to be similarly true in productivity world, is the bins and the boxes aren't enough. The tools are important, they're crucial, they're valuable, but by themselves, they aren't enough. They're just one part of a larger solution that allows us to really create the outcomes we're looking for. So let me introduce you to the other important aspects of that larger solution. The tools are the first piece, but then in addition to the tools, we need the habits. So in an organizing world, this is about, you know, we can put together the most beautiful system in the world, but if you don't have a habit of putting things away into their new homes, then the system's going to fall apart, right? Or we can use another example in the realm of a calendar. Let's think about your calendar system. You can have the best calendar system in the world, you know, whether it's Google Calendar or Outlook, doesn't matter, you know, whatever your preferred calendaring methodology is. But if you don't have a habit of, when you make an appointment, putting it immediately into your calendar, then the system falls apart. So we need the tools and we need the habits. And the third part is kind of the hidden part that most people miss. That's the mindset. And what's even more shocking is that we miss this so frequently. And in fact, it's the mindset that comes first. If we don't address some of the issues involved in mindset, for instance, let me give you a couple examples. If in the past you've had limiting beliefs, for instance, you say to yourself over and over again, my to-do list is a horror, or I always procrastinate, or I don't deserve to sit down and relax. Those limiting beliefs will sabotage your effectiveness. It will sabotage your success in instituting anything else in relationship to your productivity. So we have to start by shifting the perspective and shifting the mindset. Then we can start to explore what are the best tools to use for you and your circumstances and how you like to interact with your world. And after that, we can move into the habits. Then we can talk about what are the habits that you need in order for the system to be maintained and really be effective. So with your mindset established, the right tools and the right habits in place, you know, the habit ends up being this essential part because, you know, it's kind of like with a toothbrush, just owning it isn't enough. You need the habit of using it. And I see this all the time. I hear about this frequently. My husband works for a software as a service company. And he tells me these stories that constantly come back to this perception that if the clients seem to talk to him and realize that just paying the bill for the software doesn't actually create the results they're looking for. They actually need to use it. They need to use it effectively. They need to have a habit of interacting with it in order for it to create the outcomes they're looking for. And the same thing is true with your productivity systems. So the place that we start is with the mindset. Now, most people, when they are getting started in their day, you know, you're getting up in the morning, you're ready to get things happening, you're ready to make a move, and they gear up and they face their day like a battle. It's like, okay, I'm gonna overcome this. I'm gonna get all these things done. And it's like this huge gearing up And then when you get to the end of the day, you don't necessarily feel like you had the win. And it's partially because if you're engaging every day like a battle, you're not giving yourself permission to feel the wins. Because every one of those things that you're getting done is a win. It's an accomplishment. It's something that you have succeeded at checking off of your list. That's why I know so many people love having their system so they can see things that are checked off. And you can cross it out and it's like, woohoo, okay, I get to see all of my crossed off things so you can see all the wonderful accomplishments that you've done for the day. I want to introduce you to a way of approaching each day that's going to allow you to spend more time winning and less time fighting. So, you ready to learn this? You ready to explore this together? All right. We're going to start by really getting clear on what it is that most people do. We start every day with a whole bunch of options. We all start in the same place. A lot of us are zooming our way through our world, but we wake up in the morning and there are a whole variety of things that we could choose to do for this day. And when we start to see all of our various options, what happens to most of us is we end up in a space of boggle. It's that, oh God, okay, right, where do I go next? And so what tends to happen is we try and do all of them. So here's my plan for the day. I'm gonna do all of these things and I'm gonna start here. And then as we get one done, we move on to the next, and then to the next. And then somewhere in the course of the day, what happens is a whole bunch of new tasks and issues arrive in our email inbox or in our voicemail or that phone call or conversation that you're having with your boss or your client or your colleague. And suddenly there's all these new things that are on your radar screen too. And it becomes completely impossible to actually get all of these things done. So that we end up getting to a place where at the end of the day, we're just exhausted. Because not only did we not get all the things done that we thought we were going to get, suddenly there's all of these new things too. You feel like you barely made a dent in your list. So of course we feel overwhelmed. Does this sound familiar? Have you ever been there before? I was one of the entrepreneurs that I was talking to a month or two ago. She told me a story about how it was the end of the day and she was just feeling so frustrated and exhausted, and she's staring at her list and her boyfriend walked up. And he was checking in with her. Hey, honey, how you doing? How's it going? And she shared with him, she just vented to him, how frustrated she was, how disappointed she was. And he looked at her list. And then he looked at her and he said, sweetheart, what made you think you were ever going to be able to get all of these things done today? Like, this is huge. This is a lot of work. And essentially, he pointed out to her the key problem that most of us are encountering. This is a problematic pattern. It's a problematic approach that when we try and do it all, and we try and focus on all of it all at once, and we set the bar at getting the whole list done in a day, we are actually creating a pattern of failure for ourselves. We're creating a pattern where we're constantly frustrated and exhausted. And it's because of the mindset and the expectations that we have when we're approaching our day. So if this pattern is familiar to you, I want to start introducing you to your amazing alternative. Because there's a different way to address this that's going to leave you in a much, much better place by the time you get to the end of the day. So with this amazing alternative, you start in the exact same place. You wake up in the morning and you have a whole bunch of options. What am I going to choose to do? All of these possibilities. But rather than trying to just do them all, say, okay, here's my list. I'm going to get all this stuff done today. Instead, you're going to choose your top 4 tasks. And I do mean tasks. And so let me tell you specifically what I mean by that. A task is something that will take you 5 to 30 minutes to complete. In other words, no 4-hour-long projects here. That's missing the point. You have to drill down far enough to find the immediate next action, something that will take you no more than 30 minutes to complete. And these 4 items are your new to-day list, which means that all the rest of the things on your radar screen, all the other things that you're aware of that are important to get done at some point, you are choosing not to do today. And so by focusing in on these 4 things, then essentially you take the same next step. You find your first item and you figure out how to get started. And you start ticking those things off. Now, what happens is you complete 1, you complete 2, and that same thing that we were talking about before is going to occur, where new things are going to arise. They're going to come out of your email inbox. They're going to come out of your conversations with people, your text messages, whatever. But because you set your expectations appropriately at the beginning, you actually have space to address some of those so that you can be appropriately responsive to the new things as they arise. And some of those things you're going to check off, and you're just going to, incorporate them into your day, and you're going to make that a priority and choose to just get them done. Other ones, you're going to choose to delegate or defer. So they're going to be the things that, they aren't important today, so let me put them off for the future. And they get to just fade into the background because you'll address those some other point. This approach is what allows you to make sure that you're getting what's most important to you done while still leaving that space for the new things to show up. Because they do, right? We've all had that experience. They always show up. And when you get to the end of the day, you're going to have cleared some space, and you're going to be able to repeat that process effectively again the next day. Start again. Here's what's on my plate. What are my 4 things? What am I going to choose to make a priority of today? Now, I want to switch off of the slides for just a second and talk a little bit, just talk to you directly about kind of the key part of this that I find a lot of people get a little surprised by when I say this. So the core principle underneath this methodology is getting comfortable with the fact that the point is not to get the list done. You're always going to have a list. Having a list of things that you are choosing to do, things that are important to you, things that are relevant to keep your life moving forward, is simply a sign that you are still involved and engaged with your life. It's quite simply a way of showing that you have things that you care about and that you're committed to and that you are involved in. So if we can let go of that old idea in which the point is to get the list done, then we can invite in a new way of approaching our tasks so that we are ensuring that we are focusing on what's most important. We're being intentional in our actions. Because in the best of all possible worlds, if we're really lucky, on the day we die, we will still have a to-do list. it might have different things on it. There might not be as many, work or business related or whatever. There might not be as many functions to attend or that kind of stuff. It might be more, making sure that you're sending that card to your grandkids or to your loved one. But if we're really lucky, on the day we die, we'll still have a to-do list, because that shows that we've remained engaged all the way to the end. There were things we cared about. There were things that we were committed to creating all the way for the whole course of our life's journey. So if you can get used to that concept and let go of that old idea that I just need to get to the end of my list. I need to get to the end of my list, because there's always going to be more things to add, because that's just part of taking care of life. Let go of the old concept and just embrace the fact that we just need to manage the flow. Manage the flow and be intentional with what we're choosing to do each day. That is the mindset shift that is going to make the biggest difference to how you feel about your list and how you feel about what you're accomplishing from one day to the next. You get where I'm talking about? Is this making some sense to you? Okay, I'm going to switch back to the slides and we're going to keep going a little bit. All right. Oh, you get to the next day and you have the exact same thing. So let me talk to you about then what happens next. Because if you start this new pattern and you're able to recognize that, okay, I'm choosing my 4 things and I'm getting them, I'm focusing on them each day, then occasionally, I do this, at least seasonally, but, every once in a while, you're going to look at your list and it's going to be time to weed out some tasks. Because often what you'll discover is that there are a whole bunch of those things that have just been hanging around unselected. In other words, not that important. They just never came up as a priority. It was a good idea at the time that you captured it, but it just wasn't that important in the long run. And it might be time to acknowledge that some of them just aren't going to be. They're never going to be priorities. So you have the opportunity to make a different choice and remove them. Let them go away and create some space for the new stuff to arise. Create space for new projects, for new focuses, for a new hobby, for something that's going to bring you more joy, that new trip that you really want to make happen. How do you make sure you have time for planning that trip? You take something else off of your plate. You choose to remove it and make it less of a priority. That's what allows you to free up the space. So how do we create this, how do we get aware of everything that's on our plate in order to set ourselves up so that we can make sure that we're able to choose effectively what the right things we want to do are? It starts with a habit of capturing all your tasks. I don't care if you choose to capture them on paper or digitally, it really doesn't matter. Choose whichever tool you're most comfortable with. So if you're a real tactile paper person, that's great. One of my favorite notebook solutions for doing paper systems like this is called the Levenger Circa system, CIRCA. And it's a great planner that allows you, and particularly, I just get the notebooks. I'm not even talking about calendar. We're not discussing the calendar here. We're just talking about having a notebook into which you can capture all of those tasks. Or you can go digital and you can choose an app. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the task management software called Asana. That's the one that I personally use. There's several other great ones out there, but if you're looking for a tool for a digital task management system, I would take a glance at that one. You have to start by capturing all of your tasks in one place. And I truly do mean in one place. I've seen, sometimes I get called by clients. I had an executive client once who she got the fact that she needed to write it all down. She knew she couldn't rely on her memory, but she was in the habit of writing her tasks, you know, on the side of Jan Random Report, or on a whole bunch of sticky notes that were just like posted up all over her environment, posted up all over her world. And it was kind of like, it was like she was being surrounded by her tasks and her actions. And that really didn't help, because it was like it was creating this huge environment of, oh my God, I have all of these things to do and it's everywhere. Put them all into one place. So one notebook, one app, one location that you can consistently, you know, write these things into and then be able to review in order to decide what you're doing one day to the next. And when you get into the habit of putting all of these things into one place, then this, what I like to call, I call it your master list. Your master list essentially becomes like your menu of choices. And this is that, another one of those mindset shifts I'm talking about, where instead of your master list being, here's all the things I'm trying to get done today, it's, here is my menu of options. And I get to choose which one I'm going to focus on. I'm going to choose which ones are most important for today. But the only way that you can make a really good choice is if you start by writing all of your tasks down in one consistent place. So your master list, you know, most of us are familiar with an address book, and an address book is where we write down all of our contact information. Like, that's where the contact information lives. And most adults that I know would never imagine living without a calendar, which is where all of our appointment information lives. The master list, however, is the tool that I find missing from most people's productivity systems. It's the one place where all of your tasks, all of your action information can live. And when I say all, I truly do mean all. I mean both the personal and the professional. You have to get it all into one place, because the only way you know what is most important for today is if you see your full range of choices. So for instance, if you're in the habit of only looking at your professional list while you're at work or during your quote unquote work day, you know, what happens when you have that doctor's appointment that you need to schedule? And so you need to make that call during the middle of the workday, because, right, that's when the doctor's offices are open. So if you try and pull those two apart and you separate them, it makes it that much more likely that you are going to miss doing that task at a time that is actually effective. So you want to get literally both your personal and professional. If you need to have them on separate sheets, that's fine, but you want to make sure you're looking at all of them when you're making that decision about, here are my 4 things for today. More than anything, having this habit of writing everything down and putting it all in one place gives you the opportunity to really get clear on what's most important, because you can compare them side by side. And I want to give you a heads up, because I've seen this happen with a number of my clients over the years. Sometimes when people start this habit of writing down everything and putting it all into one place together, I've occasionally seen clients have a minor panic attack, because suddenly they're looking at all of these things they have to do and they begin to feel even more overwhelmed. And I want to start by pointing out, it's not that you had any more to do after writing it down than you did before writing it down. You're just more aware of it now. You're able to look at it all and see it all in relationship to each other. So we haven't added anything new to your list necessarily. All we've done is put it all together in one place. And by having it all in one place, you now have the opportunity to create those choices, to embrace that new amazing approach to your list, in which you're choosing to create your today list. So you remember that 4 things I was talking about? You take your master list and you choose 4 tasks, something that'll take you 5 to 30 minutes to complete, and those become your today list. Sometimes I've had clients who, if you're a paper person, you can have your master list in the book, and then you put your today list on a little stubby piece of paper or on a little sticky note, and that's what sits in front of you. That's what you're working off of. But what's different about this approach is that this is a manageable today list. So rather than those 12, 15, 20 something item monstrosities that you might have been working off of in the past, I like to call those dream lists. Those are fantasy lists. So rather than those monstrosities you were working off in the past, which were unrealistic and therefore setting you up for failure, now you have a very manageable, very realistic set of tasks for you to try and accomplish in a single day. What I also find, basically there's a magic practice that I teach a lot of my clients that's kind of an upgrade on this 4-thing today list that I find is even more powerful at giving you that sense of a win each day. And I call it choosing your inspired action. So you choose your 4 things, and then one of those tasks is your one thing. It's your inspired action. And what's different about that one thing, about that inspired action, is this is a commitment that you're making to yourself. You are committing to yourself that this one task I am going to get done today. By the end of the workday or before I go to sleep tonight, this one thing I commit to getting done. And then the other 3 become your 3 bonuses. Essentially, they're the next most important items. But by choosing this inspired action, I like to use the phrase, you commit to one and you get it done. And what happens is this kind of magic in which, by making this commitment, you set yourself up for a new way to approach your task list and your life and getting things done. You're choosing that one thing that you're committed to, and you're creating a pattern of success so that no matter what project you might have on your plate, if you make the tasks related to it your one thing on a frequent enough basis, then you absolutely, without question, will get it done. And you create this pattern in which I choose my one thing, I commit to it, and I execute on it. I get it done. I choose it, I commit to it, and I get it done. I choose it, I commit to it, and I get it done. And by doing this, you're essentially creating a new program in your subconscious mind, a new program in your own awareness, in which you're teaching yourself and you're proving to yourself, I'm someone who knows what's most important to me, and I get it done consistently. That's really powerful. That's really magical. So what I usually teach to people is that your inspired action is a commitment. Your one thing is the commitment you're making to yourself. And then the other 3 things on your list, they're your 3 bonuses. Basically, once you get your inspired action done, those are the next 3 things that you're choosing to turn to, that you know are the best things for you to be focusing on and getting accomplished. Now, depending on the day, you may or may not get all of those other 3 things done. Sometimes we all have those days where, you're packed booked. You're attending a conference, or you just got meetings back to back. You're running all over the place. And so You focus on getting your inspired action done, checking that off, having that win. I usually encourage people, do it as early in the day as possible. Give yourself a win immediately. I chose it and I got it done. Yes. And then with whatever time and whatever attention you have, your 3 bonuses are where you go next. And on some days, you're only going to get 1 of them done. On some days, you'll get 2. On some days, you'll get 3. And you'll still be able to leave space for the new things as they arise. Now, on those days when you get, let me make sure I switch properly back. On those days when you get your 3 things done, those are the days that you want to make sure you're celebrating. Because if you got your inspired action and all 3 of your bonuses done, that's a darn good day. That is a really phenomenal day because you've accomplished your entire plan. That's, you've set your outcome and you've made it all the way to the end. And in all likelihood, because I know most of the people that I talk to, none of us are really just doing 1 thing. None of us are really just doing 4 things. We're all doing like 20 things in the course of the day. But what we're doing is choosing our most important things intentionally while leaving space for the rest of the things that are coming up so that we can respond appropriately to them as they arise. So when you get that day in which you get all 4 of those things done, celebrate. Give yourself a bubble bath. Give yourself a dance party. Pop the bottle of wine if that's your thing. Make sure you give yourself permission to feel the victory. And personally, I encourage people to give themselves permission to feel the victory, even just when they get their 1 thing done, when they get that inspired action accomplished. Because you chose your most important thing that day and you got it done. Yes, even just, a simple all right, got it, good, I'm feeling great, what's next? Now, I want to address the flip side of this that I sometimes see happen. You get your 1 thing done, and then you move on and you get your 3 bonuses done. And you've had a good day. You're ready to do your, all right, I'm like celebration dance. And then most of the entrepreneurs, most of the really high achievers that I know will just go back to the list and start working on what's next. And it's like, okay, I'm on fire. Let me go do the next things. There's nothing wrong with that. You can absolutely do that. And sometimes it's great to just work off of that energy and that enthusiasm that you have built for yourself. I want you to recognize, however, that that's a choice. And part of how we stop the pattern of working 24/7 is by creating some boundaries. So I want to give you a chance to pause after you get your 4 things, your inspired action and your 3 bonuses done on any given day. Pause for a moment and give yourself permission to say, I'm done. I'm done for today. I've done good work. I got my work done. I did what was important to me, and now I can set it down and move on and go and play or go and hang out with my family and go and hang out with my friends, go and take care of myself. Because sometimes we need to know when to stop. So this gives you a cutoff. It gives you a place to say, I have succeeded today. I have done good work. If you choose to go back, that's your choice. And then I would just encourage you to have a cutoff time. So if by X time, I'm going to put it all away and I'm going to go back to taking care of myself. That's how you stop the pattern of the 24/7, because the reality is, as we said a little bit ago, if you're really lucky, you're going to die with a to-do list. There's always going to be more things on the list, which means you could always choose to work on those things. But if we constantly are choosing to do the stuff on our list rather than just relaxing and showing up and being present to the people we care about and taking that downtime that we all so desperately need, that's the pattern where we start getting ourselves in trouble. That's how we get into the 24/7 workday. So this cutoff is a beautiful opportunity for you to say, I did great work today. I'm done. We all have limited time and limited energy. There's no question. There are so many things that we want to accomplish, so many things we want to do that we can't afford to be thoughtless or wasteful with these precious resources we have of time and of energy. And that's why it's so valuable and so important that we become more intentional, that we create this pattern in which we are intentionally choosing, this is what's most important to me. Let me focus here and let me set aside the rest for this day. And it is through this pattern of managing our tasks that allows that intentionality to naturally arise. It's by giving ourselves the opportunity to have all of that information in one place and to be able to look at that information and say, okay, what are my options today? What could I choose to do? And choosing with intention the things that are going to move us forward. That's what makes life more manageable. That's what makes everything more possible. So before we completely wrap up, I want to invite anyone to ask some questions. If part of what we've talked about today has brought up ideas or brought up confusions or whatever, feel free to use the chat box and offer some questions for what I can do to clarify anything for you. So feel free to pop those questions into the chat box. It should be right on the right-hand side of your screen. While people are writing questions, I want to, there is one other thing that I find it's a frequently asked question. And so let me address it since it might be showing up for some of you as well. A lot of times people say they struggle. I talk about a task, and a task being something that's 5 to 30 minutes. I've heard often people struggle with, how do I break down the project? Like I need to, I need to get my website up. Okay, we all know a website's a huge project, right? This is not something you just do in an afternoon necessarily. But they struggle breaking down that project into things that are small enough chunks to really qualify as a task. So let me give you a couple strategies to help. The first thing that I find can be valuable, and feel free to be entering questions while I offer this piece. The first thing that I find valuable is asking yourself this question. What's the specific first step that I would need to take in order to move forward toward that outcome? What is the one smallest next step that I can move forward with that will lead me down that road? So, let's use our example of the website. If you're building a website, this is a big project because there's design and there's content writing and there's layout. And then there's putting all of these things together and getting them up and getting them, formatted properly and going live and having people test it, all of these steps that are involved. And that's, of course, including, I'm missing the steps at the beginning where you're, registering your domain name and finding a hosting service. All of these are steps. So I just gave you a whole list of different phases of starting a website. Which one comes first? The answer is there are probably a couple of different ways to go about it, but I would definitely say your domain name is probably one of the first ones. So going and choosing a domain name and registering it is one of the first things you need to do when you're starting a website. That is a task. That's something that's small enough that you can just, go on to GoDaddy or whatever, whatever your preferred hosting or preferred domain registration solution is, and choose that specific thing. That's a good example of breaking down the big project of a website into the first discrete task. And once you get that one done, then you move on to the next one. I need to choose a hosting service. Okay, let me get some recommendations or referrals. Choose a hosting service and set up an account. That's another task. Then I need to, create a plan and identify all the pages that I'm going to want to include on my website. So let me create a list of the pages that I want to include on my website and how they're going to, interrelate with each other, what they're going to, link back and forth between. So I'm kind of giving you an example of exactly what I'm talking about in terms of breaking down a major project. And Renee, I do see your question in there, and I think I'm answering it here. If I'm not, feel free to clarify a little bit further. Breaking it down into tiny enough steps that allow you to know what the task inside that project is. The second way you can do this that I sometimes find helps people when I have no idea what the first step is, Erin. Like I couldn't tell you. Then use time. Basically, if you can't figure out what the specific next step is, then put on your task list, spend 30 minutes working on X project. Spend 30 minutes working on X project. And then, grab your smartphone and set a timer for 30 minutes or, put a timer on your microwave, whatever works for you. And just sit down and figure out what, work for 30 minutes on it. See how far you get. And when the timer goes off, you're done. Task is complete. Entirely accomplished. So that either of these solutions will help you to take those big things that you like, I don't even know how to get started on this. You either ask yourself, what's the specific next action? Or you set a timer. You say, I'm going to work for 30 minutes on this project. So hopefully that helps out. Renee, you and I are apparently right on the same page. This is one of the most frequently asked questions. Another of the most frequently asked questions I hear is about habits versus tasks. Because the system I'm talking about in terms of doing your master list and putting all of your tasks in one place is actually not the most effective way to handle habits. Okay, so a habit is anything that you need to do repeatedly in order for it to effectively create an outcome. So, for instance, I don't encourage most people to put brush my teeth on their task list. Most of us, by the time we're adults, have gotten pretty good at brushing our teeth, so most of us don't need that one. But another example might be go to the gym or do the laundry. These are things that are background habits of our everyday action. And essentially, they're just better ways to handle habits. And in the future, I might offer a webinar specifically just on habits and how we can improve them, how we can build them, and how we can really manage tracking them more effectively. Your master list is for tasks and projects. And essentially, tasks and projects are the kind of things where you're like, okay, done. It's a one and done kind of item. Yep, check, done, check, done, check, done. As opposed to a habit where it's like, I have to do it a certain number of times in order to even consider it, completed. So that's another part where I do create a separation so that your projects and tasks land on your master list and you track your habits in a habit tracker. There are a bunch of really great apps out there. So hopefully that's another piece that will help provide some clarity for anyone. So if there are any other questions, this is your last chance. Otherwise, we're gonna wrap things up. So let me bring us back to our slides. All right. So in summary, what we've covered today, we explored the 3 components of excellence: the mindset, the tools, and the habits, and how these things lead us to having that productivity excellence that we're all looking for. We also discussed how mindset is truly key to overcoming that feeling of overwhelm and disappointment that we have had in the past. And by shifting our mindset into how can I create a pattern of successive victories, rather than moving the bar so far out that we constantly feel like we aren't performing enough. Turning that on its head is, in fact, how we get ourselves even more geared up to make sure that we're getting things done. It is how we give ourselves that sense of feeling awesome at the end of every day. We also explored the 2 key habits you need in order to change that pattern. It starts by capturing all of your tasks in one place, and then on a daily basis, reviewing that list and choosing your inspired action and your 3 bonuses each day. And it ends by celebrating, by giving yourself permission to really appreciate the victory, to let yourself feel good about the fact that you got your list done, and give yourself permission to feel awesome. All right, I accomplished this. So since our focus for today is all about helping you to take action, I have a couple of free gifts that I want to offer for the action takers. Now, this is only going to be available for a limited time, but if you go to this website, kiwilive.com, I'm actually going to pop it up for some of you. You should be able to see this in just a second. It's going to open up in a separate screen possibly. Otherwise, you'll see it on the right-hand side as a button to click. You enter the keyword intention. And essentially, we're going to give you free access to our productivity excellence assessment. Now, this assessment is literally something I've offered to corporate clients of mine, and they've paid over $750 just to get access to this assessment. And what the assessment will take you through is all of the 8 areas of productivity. So I was talking to you before about the 8 areas of the chosen course productivity compass. And the assessment will walk you through all 8 of those areas and give you a chance to really perceive what you could be doing differently or better. And by getting that opportunity to experience and clarify what could be different, that's what will open up a whole new range of options and opportunities for you. And so for those of you who are ready and are interested in taking it further and in really engaging with your productivity at an even greater level, I'm also going to offer, just for the first 12 people, a private productivity strategy session with me. This is a limited offer. I only, as we all know, I only have so much time. So since this is a private session, I have to make sure that there's only a certain number of people will get the opportunity to talk with me right now. But everything I'm offering right here is free. There's no sale here. There's no sale at the end of this webinar. It's really about providing support and serving the community, giving you a chance to go deeper and to really experience what's possible when you get an opportunity to move from exhaustion to excellence. So if I can help you more, I invite you to complete that excellence assessment. I invite you to sign up for the productivity strategy session and really give yourself the chance to see what's possible when you have the focus on building these skills. When you put that foundation in place that will allow you to to address these major challenges that some of us have been experiencing for decades. So I want to leave you with the question, what is your inspired action for today? Choose your place to start, and I want to invite you to start capturing your tasks in your master list immediately. There's no moment like now to start living with intention, and I want to just truly thank you for sharing this moment with me. So I wish you all of the best, and I hope I will get a chance to engage with some of you and speak to some of you directly in the near future. Take care, everybody.